Welcome to Rod's Tabletop Hoops.
Give it all you got, take your very best shot, and may the best team win. The time is now, the name of the game is action. They're on the floor and they're ready to score, so let the game begin. And let's see how the ball's gonna bounce today. Welcome to NBA. Come on and join the rest of the crowd. There's a line across the bound from your way. You'll see the best in basketball when you watch the NBA. When you watch the NBA on CBS. You'll see the best in basketball on CBS. When you watch the NBA on CBS. NBA on CBS.
During the spring of 1976, Julian E. Compton came out with a great review of multiple tabletop basketball games for Tabletop Sports magazine. The top 12 here include Status Pro Fast Break Basketball Pro Style, Nagamco Pro Basketball, Goal, Stratomatic, Playoff, BLM, APA, PTG, and Pro Action. I'm going to review a few of these games that he touched on during the article, especially the ones that I actually have a little bit of experience with. There are a few here that I never touched or played. And as you can see, at the top of this list is Status Pro, Fast Break, and Basketball Pro Style. We'll get into those as the story develops here. But first, we're going to start with their Level 1 games, which are not even on this list. Yeah, they're games that are not basketball simulation per se. They're kind of more just playable, usually physical games like the one coming up right here. It's known as Basket. Basket came out. It's only $4.95. It's a ping pong ball rolling around a molded paper floor into one of the 6 holes for either of the players to flip with metal flippers into the basket. It's pretty common, and there it is. So that's one of those games that you're just used to seeing. It's on eBay all the time. Here's another one. It's Basketball Strategy. It's unnamed players on defense, rebounding, and offensive shooting. They're just maneuvered into 7 different zones. 2 dice give the shot results. Timing is moving at 184-second interval circles on the board, making it cumbersome. Moving on, we're going to go to level 2 games. These are the ones most players in this day and age are still playing or really enjoyed, and this obviously has Status Pro in it, as that is the cover. Any game which employs data to simulate or reproduce events which actually occurred, such as last year's basketball season, is a level 2 game. The domain of each is realism and accuracy of the basketball events. The principal activity of each game is strategy and or tactics. And of course, at the top of this list is Status Pro Basketball. And that is a game that they really like based on the game flow. It's got those 11 through 88 numbers, which I always find kind of weird. The rebounding is a little bit off in my case, but the game flow is good. Passing between players, taking shots, determining whether the shot is good, the ball movement, and they even integrated as time flowed on block shots and steals and everything. And there's a layout of the original game that I own. And it's got some nice game parts. And there's Willis Reed from 1973, the champion Knicks. Moving on to Fast Break, which was given a similar grade by Julian Compton based on a lot of its playability. It's the only game with 2 cards for each player, one on offense, one on defense. I love that combination, although it does take a little bigger spot on your gaming table. It takes a little bit longer to make substitutions, but other than that, it is cool because the defensive cards actually have defense at 2 different positions. You have playmakers, forwards, strong forwards, guards, and centers are all kind of divvied up that way, with Triggerman and alternate Triggerman later on. They were called Playmaker in the early days. It's player determination cards and dice. And The shooting frequency is keyed from the deck, which may result in one team getting all the triggerman shots. That's just the way it goes in pro basketball as well, though. You can't always get the ball to the players you want, and other games allow that to happen. There are no ABA sets or pass seasons. That was its only fault that they could truly find with fast break basketball. One of my favorite games, and there's one of the original clip art pieces right there with the funny guy dribbling. The third tier of the top 3 of the simulation games is basketball pro style. I wish I could see this more often. I don't know much about it, but it's also got spots on the floor, kind of like the APA game, which really was not well received, where you can reproduce shots from different spots on the floor. They use 3 decks of cards to make the action go, one for each team's unique characteristics, and a third shot deck, which tells which of the 8 zones the ball is in and gives a letter rating A to Z. So I've heard good things about this game. They gave it the old B plus A minus rating, which means it's a Best Buy. It also has past seasons, which is NBA and ABA. There's a Lou Alcindor card really quickly. You can see how it developed, an early 70s game. 2 others worth considering. Julian was a fan of the Gamco Pro Basketball, which is not my cup of tea, but was the original tabletop basketball simulation in the 50s. It actually lasted through the 1980s. So it's not very accurate. It's got a spinner, but other people just use multiple dice to make that work. But like Rick Barry will be a 1-77 on shots only because he's the leading scorer on the team, not based on his field goal percentage. That's where I kind of like go away. The other game down there was goal, and that's not much of a game I have not played. There's some cards for the Gamco, Dick Barnett, and the ABL. And here's Stratomatic, a very popular game, but in this one, it's considered an also-ran. Julian kind of fell, not liking the flow of the game. He did not like the fact that the decisions were time-consuming and the flow was slow. But the game does have an attractive appearance. It always has. They eventually came up with a better version of Stratomatic in 1980, but I say that with a caveat. There are still people playing the original version, which was from 1972 to 1980, and some people still like that and play it. And there's the original board, which is highly colorful for 2-player play. There are your little fast action cards. They've changed a bit over time. And there's the 3 sample cards from the 1970s Houston Rockets. Next is BLM Big League Manager. Big League Manager apparently is way too complex. I don't have the complex boards. I've got the simplified version of the boards. I was given them by Kevin Hennessy. They're from 1975. They've also got a 1-50 result on ball handling, shooting, rebounds. Apparently they're complicated. It just takes a lot of time to put these things together. And people shoot while they're open or guarded, which I can appreciate that. They consider it very accurate, and it does look good, but it's just too slow, according to Julian. And this game did come out in the 60s, kind of that first generation of games, along with the Gamco, which is actually much older than BLM. But we're coming up on another game following the charts of BLM. Here's the shooting, jump ball, rebound charts, the Rick Barry and Keith Wilkes cards from the 75 Warriors. And they do have ABA and old teams, but APA, another one of the first generation games. 2 dice, multiple places on the board to pass, dribble, and shoot. They give it a D for playability, which is totally accurate. There is a simplified game, which is just kind of a shoot fest, which is actually easier to play and gets the job done, but it's just not that satisfying. It also has great teams of the past and 2 all-time all-star teams. I have a few of those things, although I don't play the game much anymore. But it's APA, and it has a nice-looking game box like all the other sports games, and it lasted way longer than it should have. But it's just not very satisfying, and people barely finish a game. If they can, they are given a silver award for just dedication. That's kind of a joke. But there's the beautiful box. And the beautiful game board, which is sectioned off. I think the F section's for 3-pointers. There's Rick Barry from 1966, pass, dribble, and shoot columns. And finally, there's PTG here, which is one of my favorite games. I think, once again, a first-generation game that just kind of got old in some people's mind. It's 50 marks per quarter. The game plays like APA. The cards look like an APA baseball card. There is ABA, college, and everything. It lasted from about 1965 through 1980. There may be a couple other seasons I'm missing there, but, their defense is covered in general. There were no stats for that, but the game is kind of fun. There's kind of some, defense has an impact individually, and you kind of shoot shots with a 2 dice roll and a team shot card, which is kind of thought was revolutionary for the time. Gets the ball to the right players. And there's the game box, or Pro Table Games Basketball right there. It's one of the classier looking game boxes, in addition to the APA-like boards with simple results with modifiers based on how good a defender you are. There's the Dipper from 1966, and there's a card back. Nice looking cards, nice looking box. Actually a pretty good looking game. The normalization games, they're just basically talking about games that will provide overtime, old time teams, newer teams. They liked some of the games that actually do that. Even APA, Julian likes that fact that they actually play games from different eras. There's Basketball Pro Style has a few games. It gets a B for that. This is just kind of a general category to talk about how well they came together and put together old seasons and ABA and NBA and NCAA things. So there you can see it. The board, once again, we had at the start of the cast here. Status Pro number 1, Fast Break 2, Basketball Pro Style number 3, the very popular games. Nagamco for quick play, Stratomatic, going to get better by 1980, but not in 1976. APA sucks. PTG's just old. Gave it a C, but I think that one should probably get a B still. It's still got all the players and all the strategy. Thank you for watching.
Give it all you got, take your very best shot, and may the best team win. The time is now, the name of the game is action. They're on the floor and they're ready to score, so let the game begin. And let's see